Welcome to We're Not Wizards. We are the best, but not wizards. Enjoy the show!
Episode of We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard.
My name's Luke Pryor.
Because he's put on his Sunday name. He's put on his full meat and two veg. He's got He's got a castle.
My meat and two veg has got nothing to do with this.
I'm absolutely convinced. Now we're in knitwear because it's knitwear season. Mm-hmm. It is knitwear season. Mr. Pryor is sporting what appears to be almost a lovely boucle zip top kind of sweater number, which has what's that on the inside collar? Is that a Burberry on the inside collar? No, is it just a normal? Oh, it's just grey.
It's just grey. I think it's from Primark. It's definitely not got Burberry on the inside collar.
I was trying to build you up. It's like, well, what does he spend all his money on? And then you look at all the paints behind you and go, oh, well, that'll be it.
all the stuff around it.
All the stuff around me. You got a question straight off the bat, haven't you?
Right, yes. I was going to be very stereotypical and potentially borderline racist, and this is the discussion we were just having before we pressed record.
Yep.
And I was going to say "Ochai Denu," which, if you've never heard of it, is essentially a general Scottish stereotypical greeting.
Yes.
And I was wondering what the translation of "Ochai Denu" is. Is there a translation of it, or is it just some weird kind of phrase that's stuck and come down?
I think it's kind of a mixture of both.
Yeah.
You know, it means kind of oh yes the now, as in
yes the
oh
now.
yes.
Ochai means oh yes.
Ochai, oh yes.
Oh,
Ochai.
I thought Ochai meant like
no.
Hello there kind of thing. Ochai.
Okay, it's like Ochai the new, is like, you know, but I can't remember because it's difficult to kind of put it into context. But not, it's kind of almost like a phrase that is like a stereotypical. It's like, it's like if you were like Irish, and top of the morning to you.
Yeah.
You don't go around the
saying
streets. You don't have anybody kind of saying it.
Have you ever in your life as a man above the wall? Have you heard? Have you ever heard somebody in all seriousness say "Ochai Denu"? No. For like a Scottish person in Scotland to another Scot.
However, I have heard many American people and many English people say "Ochai Denu" to me, thinking they were being absolutely funny as.
Really, non-ironically,
non-ironic, kind of going, "Okay, the new," and give me the kind of the elbow, like they were being absolutely hilarious. This is the best joke they'd ever told in their life, and English people as well. You'd be surprised the number of conversations. As somebody who was working in sales, or kind of is still kind of in a salesy type thing, that the number of English people who automatically start a conversation along the lines of saying that you're very, very stingy because you're Scottish, aren't you? And that, yes.
Wow.
So we get that quite. We get.
I have in all seriousness been asked if I knew anybody from the royal family.
Have you? And do you?
No, I have met a few.
Have you?
Yeah.
Can you
I've met the heir to the throne.
Which one?
William.
Oh right, okay, William. What's he like? Is he like?
He was lovely. Of course he used to fly air ambulance in East Anglia.
Oh right, okay.
And when my son was only very little, and I was on a day off, and it was just me and him, and just sort of one street over from our house, there was a big green, as you get like in sort of housing estates, and we heard our ambulance land in it. So I just thought, I'll take Elliot out, and he was I think 3, something like that.
Wow.
Took him out to see the helicopter, and I happened to notice that the pilot kept his helmet on for a long time, where the paramedics, they rushed in because apparently the kid in the school that was like next door, something had gone wrong with a kid, so the paramedics rushed in, and then like the co-pilot, he kind of got out and he was doing like checks and opening flaps on the helicopter and doing all this stuff, but the pilot kind of just stayed there, and I was like, I wonder if this is William, because it seemed logical that he was keeping himself a bit concealed. But then not long after I said that, he took his helmet off, and lo and behold, it was Prince William. And and he was really nice. He came. I think they kind of waited till they knew that the kid in the school was okay, and that the paramedics were just kind of,
because it's almost like I'm paying attention to me.
We'll get to the hospital in a second. I've got a few more handshakes to do and a couple more babies to kiss, but we'll get going in a jiff. I have duties to perform. These are my people. But no, he was really nice, and he came out and he shook people's hands, and he let the kids sit in the impression. A bit more in the Charles. I think it was a bit more Charles.
It was a bit, but I mean, it is like kind of like you do expect them to be kind of doing that kind of. I'm very, 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 very.
Yes, they talk from the.
It's almost like I've been taught to dictate.
Yes, absolutely, yes.
When I'm standing up talking to an entire room without my microphone, and it's like back to the King's Speech, which King's Speech is one of those films. I have a category of films where it's kind of like
film as well.
It's kind of like, what was that? You were in that film.
I have a connection to it.
You have a connection. Oh, right. Okay. Well, I want to hear that. But there's certain films that no matter where it is in the film, I'll watch it to the end.
Oh, yeah, and absolutely.
And the King's Speech is just like a cracking kind of film. What's your connection to the King's Speech?
So a lot of that was filmed very, very nearby me. So not far from me is a place called Ely, which is the second smallest city in the UK, and has a beautiful cathedral in it, hence it is a city. And Ely Cathedral is used in loads of different movies. And one of the things it's been used for a couple of times, and was most famously used for in the King's Speech, is when they want to do Windsor. Westminster Abbey. When they want to do Westminster Abbey, they convert the nave of Ely Cathedral into Westminster Abbey. So all of the bit where he was being coronated and everything like that, and he was being told to, that was all in Ely Cathedral.
And that's got one of my favourite scenes in it, where he's like sitting on the throne. He says, "You can't sit there. You can't sit there."
Yeah.
Says, why should I sit there? Well. He says, "Because I am your king, I have a voice." And you're going, "Yes, you do, don't you? You lovely man." Vulnerability. Right. That's what we kind of always like. I'm very, very conscious of the fact that we have called this episode "The Right to Bear Arms."
And
neither of us.
Neither
of us. And it's not like we're going to be putting a video out or anything like that, but we are both in our ninter wetwear. I can't even talk. Don't do that, because you just make me feel ridiculous.
I will keep my arms woolen clad.
What? Okay, right. Because do you have... do you have goals? I mean, have you got, this time next year...
My weightlifting, you mean? Yeah. My powerlifting?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so...
It's a yes or no question, then?
You phrased it as such.
Stop asking closed questions. This is disgusting. You think you haven't done 500 interviews before, do you? Still asking closed questions?
So I do have goals. They're kind of just, they're not... They're not kind of uncommon goals, like lifting your body weight is in certain lifts is a kind of pretty common goal. So being able to bench my own body weight is one of the goals I'm trying to reach. I haven't got to that. Lifted 200 kilos off the floor was one of my goals, which I've now exceeded. I've reached it. I haven't exceeded it yet. That's kind of it. There's only a couple of little things like that. I haven't really set a squat goal.
I heard because last time you got caught squatting, you were arrested. Is that?
No, that's not squatting.
No, that's okay. I was confused. Benching, is that when you lie on your back and lift the stuff up, or is that when you?
Yeah,
right.
I don't do a flat bench because I can't because of the condition I have in my back. But yes, essentially yes, I do. I have a slightly inclined bench, which means I'm slightly sat upright, which actually means it's technically harder. So my bench is 105 kilos, which is, if somebody said, "Oh, well, I can flat bench 105 kilos," I can incline bench 105 kilos, which technically is better. It's not like a huge amount. Like they'll probably can get to like 95 kilos on their incline bench, but it's just there's less of your body to move it. You know, you're using more of your upper body, and less of the rest of you, kind of thing. So yeah.
The thing with the world, the thing with the world's strongest man, and we spoke about world's strongest man kind of last time and your connection to them, is they're all big guys, but they're all they're muscly guys, but they're always obviously covered in kind of like a realm of subcutaneous kind of loveliness.
Yeah, they are. They're not. Well, most of them, yes, don't look like what you would know as bodybuilders. Yeah.
But why is that the difference? Because this is always something that confused me, because I remember, because you all remember, like, and I'm only reminded by this because Netflix stuck an email my way to say the new series of He-Man is coming out, the cartoon version, and I remember all the toys from He-Man.
He was
being
ripping.
Absolutely ripped.
He had lats that he could fly like a flying squirrel. Just spread his lats and just like glide.
Just looking about.
Out of the top of Castle Grayskull. Just... there's a difference there. So in history, there has been a few strongmen who were like that. One of the arguably the three greatest strongmen have ever lived are Brian Shaw from America, Zydrunas Savickas from the Ukraine, I think, right, Ukraine, and Polish Mariusz Pudzianowski. Now, Brian Shaw, 6'8", absolute behemoth of a man. Yeah. He is the Goliath that David took on. He's that guy. He's just huge. Then you have Zydrunas Savickas, who had a massive beer belly, had the big power belly as it's known, and he's just a big guy. He was just insanely strong. But then Mariusz Pudzianowski looked like a Greek god. He had the abs, the ripped, bodybuilder body, but he was an amazing bodybuilder. But strongman. The difference between the two is one of the theories that you will often hear strongmen talk about is mass moves mass. So having an excess body weight, i.e. therefore also body fat, to get yourself up to that weight allows you to move weight easier, especially when they're doing stuff like that is literally taking something from somewhere to somewhere else, not just lifting something off the floor, kind of thing, which you still in sort of weird cantilever and biomechanics, you still need mass to do so, or certainly mass can help. But that's one of the reasons strongmen look like they do, and bodybuilders are trying to sculpt their body to the finest it can look, whereas strongmen are trying to use their body to be able to take something from point A to point B in the best way.
I can also imagine I can also imagine that if you're lifting up these the medicine balls that they used to have, the big, remember the big Atlas stones and stuff like that, that if you are lifting up muscle, even if you've got the padding, but if you're missing up muscles connecting directly with that Atlas stone, you're kind of potentially more prone to injury. Whereas if you've got a little bit of a layer.
So when they, like Atlas stones is a prime example of why strongmen look like they do, is because they have to lift it on. Usually they'll often have to lift it onto a platform, which is a platform that's kind of level with their face. It's like high up, a lot of the time. So what they'll do is they'll bring it up onto their upper chest, and then they'll drive their chest and their belly into it and kind of push it up that way. So there's lots of using that body shape to do what they do, you know. So there's lots of reasons for it.
No, I'm always taken back to Chris Hemsworth talking about his scenes for Thor where he was going topless. And he says, that must have been a good time on set that day, you know, getting to strut your stuff. And he says, no, it was absolute, it was hell on earth. He would have said, you know. But he said, basically, he says he wasn't allowed to eat anything. He wasn't allowed to drink anything. He basically had to fast for like 24 hours beforehand to make sure that he just was absolutely kind of like, had nothing on him whatsoever. He says absolutely miserable. He couldn't really do an awful lot of the scenes because he wasn't able to eat. He was on the cusp of fainting because he wasn't allowed anything to kind of drink and stuff like that.
They do with it like just last weekend. I think it was Mr. Olympia. It's not called Mr. Olympia anymore. Olympia, which is like, you know, one of it's kind of the most famous bodybuilding, because I don't think Mr. Universe exists anymore, which is Arnold Schwarzenegger was famous for winning Mr. Universe. So Olympia is kind of the one. And a lot of I watch a lot of the YouTube channels of some of these guys, and what they put themselves through to get themselves to that lack of body fat is, well, I mean, it is. I mean, they basically are killing themselves, you know. And like UFC fighters and boxers and stuff, they do exactly the same thing where they're cutting weight to make weight.
Yes.
It's crazy, you know, absolutely crazy what they do to themselves, you know. It sounds horrific, you know.
I often hear of people talking about how gladiators were less likely to be kind of like the Olympic gods that were led to believe.
Gladiators would have looked like strongman.
Yeah.
Much more likely than you know, bodybuilders. Almost certainly, you know.
Yeah. I remember seeing that picture of Arnold Schwarzenegger when I think he was on the set of Conan the Destroyer or something like that, and he was next to the two guys he was co-starring with, and he looks tiny. He looks like he's at the bottom of a bloody well, which is always kind of amazing. Do you know what I mean? So, but welcome to We're Not Steroids, the show where we talk about lifting, benching, and grafting yourself to a finer physique. But when we're not doing all these things, what we do is we like to sit around the table and we like to play a few games. So, Mr. Pryor, what have you been playing? What have you been getting to the table?
Recently,
yes,
I went to ACWest. ACWest, as I've just shown my mug from ACWest, which was previously. It was last year. It was kind of a get together that got out of hand, and Mark Cook was one of those people, and 100 people. Last year in a couple of conference rooms of a hotel in Telford turned into the new Aircon West, and there was, I think, 250, 300 people, something like that, at this same hotel again in Telford. And it was fabulous. It was absolutely most marvellous, and I got to play lots of games. So off the top of my head, one of the first ones I will mention, which was definitely one of my wins, was GKR Heavy Hitters, a game I had long wanted to play, and look at that, you've got GKR Heavy Hitters, you lucky bugger. I would hope that rulebook is quite slender, because as to play, it's it looks like there's quite a bit in there.
No, I mean, there's only quite... Let me go through this. There's only quite a bit in here.
Pictures and stuff in it.
No, because there's literally, right, because this just isn't the main thing. I've also got the advanced rule book, and I've also got the expansion rule books as well. This is everything.
No, I have no idea if I played advanced or what. I think we probably played some level of advanced, but put simply, fabulous game. If you like arena combat, you know, that kind of thing, look no further. There's very few games that are better. Mythic Battles is better, but There's very few games that are better.
Still flying that flag. Still flying that flag.
Flying that flag.
You're totally like, Fetch is going to come on. Fetch is going to catch up next year. You're just flying the Mythic Battles flag. Mythic Battles till I die at Mythic Battles.
Absolutely. It was really good fun. And it's one of the cool things is it's not just, you think it's big stompy robots fighting big stompy robots, and absolutely it is.
Yes.
But because you do this thing where you tag buildings, and once you've got four tags on a building, there's all these like cool little skyscrapers set around the around the board. Once you tag 4 sides of it, you destroy that building, and that's one of the 4 that you can win via. So you can win by killing the other big robot, or tagging and destroying 4 buildings. And then, so we started off, you have your big robot, and then you have a little recon robot, which is really fast. Then you have a fixer bot that can heal you, and then you have a shooty one that's got a decent shot. And I took a pilot that meant that all of my little ones moved further and shot further. So my logic was, okay, well, if they're more mobile, they'll be able to tag the buildings quicker and more efficiently. So that's the route I'll go to try and win, which I did. But it was one of those kind of, I won in the turn I won. Next turn, my opponent probably would have beaten me.
That's
so it was
good.
a real nice, down to the wire, kind of felt like we'd had a really good fight kind of thing. And it was just great. I mean, it's beautifully produced.
Oh,
It's
Jurassic Park. We spared no expense. It originally came to Kickstarter a while ago, and then it came back to Kickstarter again. And then Weta have been slowly kind of dwindling their stock, because I think they went into board games thinking, this is going to be fantastic. This is going to be like Lord of the Rings. We just need to keep producing more and more stuff in relation to our IPs. And they've not kind of done anything. What I like about GKR, because I've got everything, it's one of the games that I went out and said, right, I'm going to get everything for this. So I have got everything for it. And it's one of these games, it's not like as it's got older, it's got more and more expensive. It's kind of unfortunately lost value. So you can pick it up relatively cheap. It's just very, very difficult to kind of get hold of it.
Yeah.
But the stuff that you get in it, I mean, the whole game is based around, it's a card play game. I mean, you've got 25, you've got a deck of 25 cards, and that denotes kind of like energies, and every round you get an amount of energy that allows you to do a certain amount of moves, and you move these big stompy robots who must be at their base. The base must be, about 2.5, 3 inches
across, hexagonal
base.
Yeah.
And then they must be
each
about
side of the hex is probably 1.5 inches at least. Yeah.
And they must be about 5.5, 6 inches high, these models.
Yeah,
maybe not easily that, dependent. Yeah.
Easily, yeah.
But they've got this kind of
I think there's quite a subtlety to it as well.
Yes.
It's a big, beautifully produced thing, but it's actually quite understated in a lot of its design. It's not like the board is all kind of grey.
Yes.
But really nicely done. And again, the buildings are kind of like grey with little elements of colour. But so actually what happens is your stuff and the tags that you're scoring the buildings, they all really stand out.
Yeah.
So it all really kind of, it works beautifully. I was really impressed with their restraint in the graphic design of it all, that actually elevates the whole thing. It really highlighted to me what that restraint looks like and what it can perform, sort of thing, what it can do.
You get the beautiful. There's the Urban Wasteland expansion, which gets you a couple of extra little boys to play about with. And then there's the Sweet and Salty expansion. And the Sweet and Salty expansion, one of the robots is purple and one of the robots is pink. So when you've got like all these players on the board, and you're right, it starts as a kind of completely grey landscape, but you get kind of like the different tags on the buildings, and they're all these beautiful primary coloured tags.
Yeah.
And the reason I've got the rules out is because one of the guys at the games club, they started to play Battletech, So you can imagine that BattleTech, BattleTech is like, but they love it, and I'm not going to poo-poo somebody if they love BattleTech. It's a huge thing.
Absolutely not.
But I mean,
I wish I could love BattleTech, but
the miniatures are
tiny.
tiny. Oh, they're just tiny little minis, and I just went, I'm going to bring you in a treat. I'm going to bring you in GKR heavy hitters. Nom, 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 nom. You know what I mean?
A box of After Eights, just like, look at this.
It's like you've been eating korma, mate. This is your issue. You've been eating korma. And I've got a lamb Rogan Josh out the back here. Do you know what I mean?
Is that your step up, a Rogan Josh, really?
Yeah. All right, chef boy. What's your step up from?
I'd have gone maybe like a jalfrezi. It's got some.
Oh, jalfrezi's all right. I could do that. I'm into my little pastes and stuff like that. I like a lot, but it's been a while since I had lamb because lamb's so expensive now.
It's true.
I have to get kind of like my fine expense goes as far as like pork belly. So I like a bit of pork belly, bit of jalfrezi, stick in there. Anyway, GKR heavy is lovely. Yes. So I shown him it, and I'm going to show him it. I'm going to bring it in, and he says, "Oh, could you just bring it in?" It's like, no, the box is because the box in this thing is huge. It's a big box.
It is ridiculous.
So have you been persuaded to try and pick up a copy of it then?
I wanted to pick up a copy, and I definitely will keep an eye on like the second-hand market for it. But like you could get it now on like the base set. They've got it for like $45 on Weta's store, but it's like also $160 to have it shipped from the US. So it's like
yes.
Right, great, thanks. Brilliant. So no, I think I'm hoping, and it's very likely it's one of those ones that's a massive box that's sat on people's collections and I never bloody play this because that's what us gamers are like. So I think I'll keep a close eye on the second-hand market.
If you have got GKR heavy hitters out there and it's sitting on a shelf and you're in the UK and you're just thinking, I'd love this game but I'm never going to play it, get in contact with us. Reach out to us at
I will pay a perfectly acceptable price for it.
You will. Luke wants some GKR. He's heavy hitting for you.
No, it was a really, really good game. Yeah, so that was... it wasn't the first game we played. The first game we played was Mythic Mischief, which is a game I really love as well. Have you ever played Mythic Mischief?
Is that IV Studios?
IV Studios, yeah.
I've constantly seen adverts on Facebook for their various products.
Yeah.
And they seem to be, I don't know how much they're spending on advertising. I'm assuming that it's a pretty amount on Facebook. They've constantly got something for Mythic Mischief and Moonrakers, and they've got a couple of other games. Veiled Fate's another one that they've got. What's it like? Is it good?
So it's an abstract strategy game with a really good theme. And I don't know how that sentence makes sense, but it does, because there's no other way to describe it. So it's set in high school, and it's primarily, we'll call it a 2-player game. You can play it in 4-player like teams and stuff like that, which I really would like to try at some point. But fundamentally, it's still a 2-player game, and you have a chessboard-esque grid. And you are, let's talk about just the first edition. The second edition changes it ever so slightly. You have different factions within the school. So you have these mythical factions. So you have like the Frankenstein's monsters, zombies, ghosts, wizards, witches, vampires, and all these things, all these kind of things. And you have, each of you has three of these things. Each one technically is the same, and you are trying to sneak around the library with the big monstrous tome keeper who is going to move. He's going to move between 3 points. So there's you do a little setup thing, and there's 3 points that'll be marked on the map, and he'll always take the shortest route to 1, and then eventually he'll go to 2, and then eventually go to 3, and then it's break for lunch, and you do it again, but he moves slower, right. And you get an extra ability in after lunch. You get your after lunch special ability.
All right. You didn't just break for lunch. You did just stop the game and go.
No. Right, lunchtime. Anyway, burger
sandwich.
Right. So, and the room, the library, is broken up obviously by library shelves and stuff, and then there's these little tomes that you can pick up, which allow you to kind of get more action points to spend. And each person you've got how you move, which is generally just moving. You spending action points to move. Then you've got ways in which you can move another piece. So it's almost generally like a throw. So like the monsters might take the person in front of them and move them straight behind them, or something like that, or the ghosts swap with the person and stuff like that, things like that. And then you've all got a way that you can move the library shelves as well. Then you've got their own special ones that make them very unique to them, sort of thing. But each people do the same things slightly different.
Yeah.
So they've all got their slightly different tactics, and what you're trying to do is you're going to get to 10 points, or whoever's got the most by the end of their second kind of round, and you do that by getting people caught by the Tome Keeper. So you try and get them in the path of where he will be going to that next bit. And it's just I just think it's a really well done game. I think it didn't do as, it's not, I don't think it gets enough love for what it is. I think it's a brilliant abstract strategy game. But like I say, it has got a really cool theme on it, but it really does play like a chessy kind of game kind of thing. Beautifully produced. Ivy Studio produce stuff beautifully, like really beautifully.
They seem to be one of these studios that know how to present themselves. They've got, I don't know if they're from, I think there's the marketing kind of background to them. I'm pretty sure they've been on the show. They were on the show a long time ago to talk about kind of Moonrakers.
Was it Austin that was on?
Yeah,
Austin. Yeah, he's a lovely guy. They're all very kind of trendy hipster, and I mean that in a nice sense, not yeah. They're very, very trendy hipster kind of people. They're very, they understand the world in which they live and the market that they are looking at, kind of thing.
Yes,
and they're very good. Their YouTube channel now is also really good. I only sent Austin a message a little while ago saying how I really love the content they were doing. They were doing some really cool stuff, but yeah, really. They make some really cool games. I've got Moonrakers, but I haven't had a chance to play it yet, and I really want to play Veiled Fate, and I was hoping to play it at ACWest, but I didn't get a chance to. But Veiled Fate sounds like it's right up my group street. It's kind of like this, you're all playing one of the 8 demigods that are like on this board, and you're trying to kind of move these demigods to be kind of like, I think, trying to get to like God level or something like that.
Yeah.
But nobody knows which one you are, but you're moving all of them. So you're all kind of trying to fulfill stuff and do stuff, but not show your cards too much, kind of thing.
Wow, okay.
So it sounds very clever,
Yeah.
And I think there's versions of that where like it could play up to like 8, and I think in 8. You actually have 4 teams of 2, but you don't know who your teammate is. So that again sounds in the right group.
Sounds,
it could be brilliant,
Yeah,
and my group is that kind of group. In the wrong group, that'll fall so dead on its ass, So that's Mythic Mischief. So what else did I play? I did play another very pretty game. It was the last game I played before we left. It probably wasn't the greatest example of it because none of us had played it before, and I think the person who ended the game or like triggered the end did it kind of unknowingly early. Kind of thing. It ended quicker than it probably would have.
Yeah.
But this is a game called Ice. So you've got this very clever board that is made up of 4 sections, and they magnetize together. And then it has this stepped hexagonal grid that you put the first layer and you're playing these kind of this weird bunch of like mythical races that are are archaeologists looking for these great artifacts and elements and stuff like that. So you're digging through this ice, but I mean, to look at when you're playing it, it stands out from the crowd. And there was so many people just like, what on earth is this? You know, kind of thing. You know, just, you know, like, oh, you're playing this. You know, they knew what it was straight away, kind of thing. But yeah, very, very cool game, and I definitely look forward to getting to that played a lot more. It was really good. Really good.
I think it's Oliver from Tabletop Games Blog. He's done a review, or he's been mentioning that. And the first thing I looked at it, I went, that looks... From the photographs, first thing I thought was Acropolis. But based on what you... Because the photographs was close up. It was close up, so I just saw tiles on top of each other. Because I guess it's
you do get that layered effect, which Acropolis does very nicely as well.
Yeah, it's been too long since I played that game. In general, so was ACWest like an aperitif to the main course at Aircon? Because have they not got another thing coming up in December?
Northwest as well, which is in Manchester. Which I was really hoping to go to, and I was going to... Dan Hughes, Internet Titan, Dan Hughes,
hello!
Very kindly offered to let me come up and stay with him, and then him and Evan were going to just drive over every day, because I don't think it's too far from where he is.
Yeah.
But I just hadn't got the time, and you know, we go to Econ West and this and that and everything like that. So, and I'll go to Poland as well in December for staff Christmas party for Game Fest.
Oh, for goodness sake!
So yeah, I just couldn't make it work, which is a shame, because I would love to have gone, but bloody hell, the hotels were expensive in Manchester as well. You know, going and staying with Dan would have been my better option anyway. But I mean, when I saw the prices, it was my only option if I took an option. But I think I don't know how many people I think that's kind of like another kind of 250, 300 people thing.
I'm wondering if it's decent size. 'Cause I think I don't know if his game plan or his philosophy is to say, well, and this is Mark Cook, the way that we built up Aircon worked really, really well. So I think there's a mistake you can make. You can say, oh, well, we're getting a good couple of thousand people at this venue, let's go and open up something and do a good couple of thousand at this venue, and then obviously you could fall on your arse and it can all fall apart. So
yeah, I
guess seeing what AC West is like, and then AC Northwest. So is he going to work around the compasses? I mean, is this what he's...
Well, I said to him, I said, can we get one a little bit down my way, please? You know, I'm fed up with having to come Birmingham or more.
You love it. You love it.
I wouldn't mind one where I could actually drive to it from my house. That'd be lovely.
I suppose. Well, I mean, the first thing to do then is, if you don't like what's happening, then Luke, is to build your own.
I know. I'll tell you what. I said this when I was at Aircon West.
Yeah.
I had long, well before I knew Mark Cook and anybody who ran a convention, I had long thought about running a convention in Cambridge, you know, starting something like that. Cambridge isn't littered with venues that would be suitable, but I thought, you know, you could do it some way or another.
Yeah.
But knowing Mark very well and the, you know, the people that run these things, I absolutely do not have the patience to babysit people in the way that Mark and the team have to. I'm sorry, it is unbelievable the stuff they get constantly battered and asked about. And I hear it and I feel like just going, are you serious? You know, you're a grown human being. He is not your bloody chaperone. Sort yourself out. You know,
you've got to give you can't come out with something like that and not give an example. Is it somebody going like...
No, I won't give an example because that would potentially highlight people who I'm talking about. To be honest, I can't even remember anything particularly specific.
Yeah.
But it was just, I mean, it was that must have happened to me 5 times in 3 days in Telford, where I just heard people I was just like, are you serious? You know, I mean, like, grow up. kind of thing. You know, it's just ridiculous. I mean, I get that that's absolutely, they're there to make sure everybody's all right and help and make sure that everybody's sorted and stuff like that. But most of these things fundamentally did not need, you know, or nothing really to do with event organisers and stuff like that. And you just think, you haven't, you've booked a spot in a convention. You haven't booked this man's time and effort to be at your beck and call. That's not what you've booked, you know. And I think people need to realise that sort of stuff a bit more, you know. And I think maybe it's that smaller convention vibe, you know, and Mark, he really puts himself out there and he's real front and centre.
He's a personable man, isn't he? I mean, it's not like he can hide unless he dived into a building or dressed up as a building.
Unless he cuts his legs off at the knees.
Even then, it would be back to like that picture of Arnold Schwarzenegger. You know, that picture we were talking about is Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he's got Andre the Giant on one side, and he's got Mark Cook on the other, and they're dwarfing them. You know, and it's the title, the caption is Mark Cook's favourite guests if aircon was a fantasy thing, kind of thing. You know, I'm interested to see where it goes. I don't know if he'll go. See, we're always kind of like further. With me, it's always like further afield, because even if it's like aircon itself, it's still 3.5 hours, 4 hours drive.
Yeah.
And then if you're talking about a train journey, you've still got to organise kind of getting to the train station, because there's not like a direct train down to Harrogate. I usually drive up to aircon, but then was it not last year, the year before, Mark put on the Airbus. Do you remember hearing about that? Yeah, I remember the Airbus.
So he asked me to be the chaperone for that, and said, "Look, can you be the kind of the focal point? You know, that you know, book everybody in at the hotels and blah 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 and stuff." And I said, "Yeah, absolutely no problem." And it was great fun. It was absolutely awesome. It was a really good idea, and I do hope they do it again, whether I'm anything to do with it or not. You know, I think the people who did it had a great time. I mean, there was one guy who came from half an hour outside Harrogate all the way down to London to catch a bus back to Harrogate. It was ridiculous, but he had a bloody great time. And they got some FaceTime with some minor celebrities like Matthew Jude and Rodney Dangerfield, or whatever his name is, Rodney.
Rodney bloody going on every single podcast except mine, I'd like to point out. Yeah. I just listened to him. I listened to him with Ben Maddox, yeah. And then okay. I just listened to him and it's like, you're a lovely man. And then lo and behold, right, pops up on Liz Davidson's one as well. Do you know what I mean?
My heart bleeds.
I can't even say anything of it. You know what I mean? I'm just...
To be fair, if I'm the calibre of your guest, there's a reason you're not getting Rodney Smith.
I don't want... door's shut to him now.
Yeah,
there you go. Thanks for watching. Watch that.
I can't remember what my point was. What was it? Oh, yeah. So that year, I had to then catch the train back, because obviously I'd caught a bus up. And that was a ball ache. That was not a fun day. When there's 2 replacement bus services within your train journey, you know it's going to be a shit day, don't you?
Yeah, you know it's going to... I've nowhere to put a small board game. You can't even turn round. There was always that I saw somebody saying, I'm on an airplane for the next 6 hours and I've got a couple sit next to me for the next 6 hours. What board game should I persuade them to play? And it's like, don't do that.
None.
Don't do that.
I've seen that.
Don't do that.
That's popped up on Facebook a couple of times lately. And the overwhelming majority of people are saying none. Don't do it.
Don't want,
Well, when I'm waiting in the line for passport control, what's the game I should break out with people around me? There isn't the game. There's the face forward and get on with it game. That's the game you play.
Shut up and die alone one. Come on.
Yeah.
If you're reaching out for people in the queue around you, and I get it, but there's a point where people are going, oh my goodness, go and stop that. We spoke about GKR, which is a big box game. So I want to talk about something that I have been playing, which is a much smaller game.
Oh, I want to hear about this because I am Osprey and David Thompson fanboy number one.
I think you'll find that actually,
as I don't own that, I suppose I can't really claim.
You can't really claim to.
No,
I refuse to give you money, Mr. Thompson, for your product. I'm looking at its general orders from Osprey Games, which is first of all, it's surprising how small a box it is. I mean, you're literally looking at something that is about. I mean, that's about 6 inches by about 3.5 inches by about.
It's one of those ones. It's oddly deeper than it. You know, it's an odd depth for a box that size.
Yes, you know, I was expecting it to be. It's like two. If you look at, like, say, a standard kind of this size 4x6 kind of box, it's about double the depth really. So it's coming in at about 3.5, 4 inches as opposed to the normal kind of 2.5 inches. It is, in essence, it's kind of like a worker placement war game. Now, I had David and Trevor on the show
I haven't listened
a while
to this.
ago.
I must listen to that.
Thanks.
So equally, again, not the fanboy I'm claiming to be.
Not the actual, you know what I mean? Little grey cells, Hastings. The evidence, it mounts up. you know, you're like Syndrome, and you know what I mean, the Incredibles. After all, I am your greatest fan. It's like, no, you're not. You're clearly not. You're not obviously digesting every single... And I'm also personally insulted at the fact that...
I hadn't listened to it.
You hadn't listened to my show with his interview. I take it you listened to Liz Davidson's interview with David. No,
I've never listened to Liz Davidson's podcast.
Know, it's a very, very good... It's a very, very highbrow educational podcast. You kind of walk away from that podcast feeling you learned something. Anyway, General Orders is... it's kind of like... It's kind of like worker placement war, but it's very, very abstract in how it kind of deals with it. And the size of the board is tiny. I mean, everything about this game is tiny. Everything about this game suggests this is a game that should be played in about 20 minutes at the end of the session. And this is what happened to me on Friday. I've played it with my middle boy. He absolutely loved it. He went, "This is my game. This is exactly my game." I played it on Friday. We played Viticulture, which I came third. We played a full kind of 6-player game of Viticulture, which was good fun.
I've never played a 6-player game.
6-player Viticulture is life. It's really, really good.
Is
but
it
like,
Did it not drag at 6?
No, it actually moves pretty quickly. We actually got it done within about 2 hours, if that.
That's not bad for a 6.
It's not big. It's not a big board.
No.
It's not much bigger than a good birthday card. A good birthday card that you'd open up, that's the kind of the size that we're looking at. I'm trying to give...
Cards, what you meant.
Well, it's a good quality... Probably somebody's 18th that you really liked.
That might make a tune when you open it. That sort of birthday card.
Or it would kind of like...
exist anymore?
I don't know. They went through a phase of having one of these kind of bad recordings.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You used to be able to say, "Michael Caine's wishing you a happy birthday." Do you know what I mean? You're only supposed to blow the bloody candles out. You know?
That's a great impression, but also awful.
Because it'd be bad with that, because they would actually get an impressionist to do it, but then you'd have the kind of the grated digital kind of. So as the battery runs down, it ends up sounding like a very drunk Donald Duck. Anyway, General Orders is all kind of like, it's like an area control, worker placement. Very, very quick. It's 4 rounds. It's a 4-round game, so it's not like... And I was really, really surprised, because coming from the land of Undaunted, what Undaunted is, yes, you've got to fulfill an objection for this, but a game of Undaunted can run anything from like, you know, an hour to a couple of hours, depending on if you kind of get the war of attrition, you know, depending on the scenario and stuff like that. So basically, what you've got is 2-player. And what you'll do is you've got commanders, you've got your base, kind of like your base units, which are your armies. At the beginning of the game, you occupy about 4 or 5 kind of spaces. They're hexagonal spaces, they're hexagonal spaces, but you get areas which are joined together. So you get two hexes, that might be an area. In that area, it's going to tell you the number of soldiers that you have. Also in that, it might have an action that you can take. So you can you can advance, you've got one space which allows you to do like a paratroop action, you've got one space that allows you to do a barrage action. There's a board off at the side that allows you to kind of reinforce soldiers, so you can bring in like an additional 6 soldiers or 5 soldiers depending on what you play. You've also got cards that you can draw as well, and there's also a little mechanic that allows you to change who goes first. So in your turn, what you'll do is if you decide to advance into a space, you pick the space you're wanting to advance to, and then you put your command token in the advance kind of space. So it means on that round, you're the only person that's allowed to advance into that space. The enemy can't then bring in a commander and put their... There's like one action per kind of like... One commander's allowed per kind of like action. So it's a worker placement that completely blocks off the thing. Where it gets interesting is things like... it's kind of like when the combat comes in, I've say got 4 discs in my space, you've got 3 discs in your space. I decide I'm going to advance into your space, and then a conflict happens. Now the first thing that happens is the defender rolls a dice, and the dice it's got 1s, it's got 2s, and it's got a blank side. And the first thing is the defender rolls a dice, and they then remove that number of troops from you. So as you're coming in, because they're defending the position, they've got the ability to take out some of your troops. Now, depending on how they roll, they might roll 1, they might roll none, they might roll 2, depending. You'll remove the troops, and then what happens is you then pair off the troops and start removing them.
Right, I see.
So it's a horrific war of attrition. You're literally removing troops, you're pairing them off against each other, and then whoever's left in the space, you'll end up maybe only with 1 troop left, and that's whoever's kind of controlling it. And so that's what you do. You continue back and forward. It's just 4 rounds. You've got like 5. You've got five moves per round. You play into command. You advance.
Is it
you
just 2 players?
Yeah, it's just 2 players.
It's just 2 players. Yeah.
Just 2 player. Yeah, it's just 2 player. So that's the basic premise of it. You can play cards, and some of your cards allow you to roll additional attack dice. They allow you to roll additional defense dice. What's interesting about it is in the center row of the board, there's 5 hexes which have additional powers in them, and if you control those powers, then what it does is it gives you extra things. So it might allow you to roll an additional dice when you do a barrage. It might allow you to get some extra troops if you do a reinforce action. The center square basically gives you extra defense if you control that against. It's like the capital city. So it's whoever takes a capital city has like a huge advantage. And in each of those hexes across the centre row, plus a couple of additional hexes on either side, there's little stars. And those stars are basically victory points. And once you get to the end of the game, whoever's got the most stars kind of wins. And it's fabulous.
Has it got a little bit of like... you played Blitzkrieg?
Yes, I've got, Blitzkrieg sits in my collection, yes.
So has it got a little bit of that vibe of Blitzkrieg in that it's a very clever, condensed, abstract look at war kind of thing?
Yeah, you're dealing with discs, there's no stories here, there's no background here. It's not like, it's a complete departure from Undaunted. In the Undaunted, you feel that you were dealing with characters and kind of real people. In that when you were kind of like losing kind of various units, you were losing faces. You're losing discs here. I mean, you could send in, what happens is you send in like, when you're doing an advance action, you're deciding, okay, well, I've got to leave 1 disc behind because I can't leave an area without any kind of backup at all. So I move 3 discs in. They've got 2 discs. Oh no, they've rolled a 1, so they've removed 1 of my discs, and now everybody's gone, and the entire space that I've advanced into ends up empty. So it's very, very abstract like that. But it moves it moves incredibly quickly. But there's two sides to the board as well. On the other side of the board, you've then got a completely different map, which involves kind of Air Force. Now, the main difference between the Air Force and the ground attack is the Air Force is essentially providing additional support. So there's a kind of I don't know, it's really strange to describe, but but the other side of the board is basically you've got, I don't know if you can see this, right? So this is the normal side of the board. And you've got this, you can see the central 5 kind of hexes in the middle, yeah? And they've each got kind of like, basically this one stays the same, but then in the center line, you've got chits that you add in, so the powers vary every single game. Right. But on the other side, it's a completely different map, but you've also got certain areas which are outlined, and that's to suggest kind of air support. Okay. And then round the outside of the board, you've kind of got areas where you put your planes.
I see, yeah.
So as the game progresses, you're not only you're vying for kind of like control of the skies as well as control of the ground. So you can have troops kind of coming in, but it's really funny, the planes don't specifically kind of move onto the map. They're just there to say we're hovering above. So they don't actually get involved in the action. But yes, it kind of joins. I'd say it's very much kind of in the same wheelhouse as Blitzkrieg in terms of its abstractness.
So my logic would be that, like, if you like the vibe and feel of what Blitzkrieg does,
yes,
and the way it kind of tells the story of World War II, obviously,
yes,
this sounds like you probably like the vibe and way this goes about,
yes,
showing a conflict, you know.
Yes,
I know it is World War II, but it's being like it's pretending to be like a theatre in World War II, isn't it, rather than World War II as a whole, like Blitzkrieg kind of thing.
Yeah. It's not giving distinct areas. Yeah. There's no background here to say you are currently on the Eastern Front or you're currently on the Western Front and this is the situation that you're going through. It's kind of like, this is kind of like an abstract area. We're very, and they even actually say within the rule book on the back that, we're very, very kind of aware that this is more abstract than it is kind of historical, which makes an awful lot of sense, basically. So, I've got I'm going to pen some thoughts and put some thoughts together, but they're basically going to be, they're going to be very, very similar. It's very, very easy to learn, and the rule book is very, very easy to learn, and it is very kind of Blitzkrieg, kind of get yourself kind of up and running. And I could see somebody kind of like spending a couple hours playing a bit of Blitzkrieg, a couple hours playing a bit of this, if they were just kind of like going for a kind of a round of kind of very, very kind of normal, kind of very, very kind of just very quick and easy games that they can kind of drop in and drop out of.
Do you think David Thompson gets nearly the credit he deserves as a designer?
No.
Because I don't think he does. I think he is a very well-respected designer, and those who know his games consider themselves his number one fan. But I don't think, I think his name should be up there with the absolute upper echelons of designers. And I think I suppose the trouble is, well, I don't know, he has made lots of games. He's not all just about war games, He's done stuff that isn't in that realm,
I'm interested to see. I think the test, and when I spoke to Trevor and David, it became quite clear that David's very, very much into making sure that he is crossing all the I's and dotting the T's. Right. That's the wrong way around. Switch it, reverse it. Yeah. But when it comes to simulating kind of like the act of war, he's very much, I want to do this right. But then they've just announced Callisto, which is kind of like a complete departure. It's going to be using the kind of the Undaunted engine. So I'm wondering what we're going to see that's going to kind of be different. because I think the reason that Undaunted worked, and especially I even like, Battle of Britain. I really, really like that. I don't know if you've had a chance to play.
I haven't played it yet. No, I really want to.
It's I was very, very impressed.
And it's quite fiddly in not fiddly as in a pain in the arse to play, but it's a lot harder to play because you're using the movement of aircraft and stuff. So you've got to really be able to think like 2 or 3 moves ahead, kind of thing.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. You can't do a sudden change of direction.
You don't want to introduce anybody to the Undaunted system with Battle of Britain. Is probably
No. But I'm interested to see but he's always had those kind of constraints then. Because obviously you can't, like, say, Undaunted North Africa, you can't all of a sudden say, right, the Jeep's going to take off and fly, like Back to the Future. You can't do that. He's always had the constraints. So I'm going to be interested to see what happens when he's presenting a system like Callisto, which isn't going to have any constraints. If he's going to have kind of invading robots, or if he's going to have kind of like air support and stuff like that, I'm interested to see kind of what kind of happens. But
when I first heard about Callisto, and for anybody who doesn't know what we mean, Callisto is essentially the new sci-fi version of Undaunted, set in this Callisto world. We don't really know anything about it at this point, do we? Initially, I was just like, "Oh, excellent," because I'm a sci-fi guy. So at first, I was like, "Oh, that's going to be amazing," and then I almost instantly recoiled and went, "Oh, actually, it kind of like I know the game itself will be very good."
Yes.
Because it's the Undaunted system, and it's Dave Thompson, and he's, I know it will be solid. I absolutely know that for a fact. But I don't know anything about this Callisto world. If that's just not that good or not that interesting, then it'll probably fall on its arse for many,
I think it might. I think the sci-fi thing. I think, and war gamers are a crowd, and they are a people, and they're very selective about what they play, and they're very defensive, sometimes overly defensive, about what they constitutes a kind of a war game.
Like Memoir 44, that's a war game, right?
Yeah, Votes for Women won an award for the war game. It won an award as a war game, so there you go. But I'm interested to see if they can still consider, if there might be a little bit of snobbery for folk to say, well, we wanted you to do kind of maybe, why can't you do this kind of front instead? Why can't you do kind of like something based in kind of slightly northern Europe? Why can't you do something on the east? They did Stalingrad, which I've got to get my hands on.
Yeah, I haven't urged to get Stalingrad because I know it's a campaign thing and it's a lot less likely I'll get a chance to truly see it through. But I really want to get Battle of Britain. I haven't got, like, all I've actually got at the moment is Normandy and North Africa, but I would like to get the reinforcement spot because that allows you to do the solo version of it, doesn't it? And I heard the solo version isn't like amazing. And it's a bit clunky, and there's like kind of like you're doing a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? Like maintenance. You're doing a lot of keeping up with stuff, rather than playing the game. But I think I would still like to really give it a try, and I just have so much respect for the system in general. But yeah, I mean, I could see why people will probably go like, "Oh, well, why haven't you done Pacific?" Is an easy one. Why haven't you done Undaunted Pacific yet? Or even Undaunted of the Seas, like they've done Battle of Britain. Where's the naval? And it wouldn't surprise me if all of that is in the works.
Probably
mean, at this point, David probably has a lot less to do on Undaunted. It's the system is there, and he probably balances and develops it and stuff more so than actually has to design it now, and that job's sort of done and it gets tweaked. He isn't probably up to his knees in it so much anymore, is he?
But maybe, I mean, I heard Efka and Elaine talk about this on the no pun included podcast, saying that their thing, they thought kind of like Stalingrad was the excellence kind of swan song for the series.
I have heard, yeah.
It was kind of like the best of the best, and everything was wrapped up, and there was this beautiful kind of semi kind of legacy game. If I was David, I would be like, well, what else can I do? There's maybe a part of him to say, well, if I put out a war game based on any of these theatres of war, people are going to buy it because they love the series. Maybe this is him saying, well, I'm testing myself here.
What else we could do? Yeah.
What else if you kind of like that? And if it works, then it kind of opens him up to being able to do kind of all of kind of X, Y, Z. So I'm kind of interested. But General Orders, there is going to be a written review very soon. But yeah, I kind of, people that have played it so far, my son basically said, that is my game. That is my kind of game. I like that. And he also really, really liked Blitzkrieg. So it's a damn good comparison. The only other game that I've played with a little bit, I played Viticulture, which I reviewed recently. I'm not going to talk about Viticulture. Viticulture is right up there in one of my favourite games. I just love it.
It's a borderline perfect worker placement game.
It's just, I love it. There's nothing fabulous. More. It's just, I can, do you know what? We've reached the point now where we've played it enough that there's not people that are learning the game now, and now that everybody's kind of working on that little strategy, and they're the best kind of game, so there's nobody kind of really kind of struggling to the rules. The only other game that I mentioned before we move on to probably what we'd like to get to the table soon, and I've got one I think you might like, really, really like. I played, and I want to get the name right on this. I don't want to mess up this because I had it in my mind one way, and it's called Kinfire Chronicles Nightfall, and the box is huge.
I know the game. I know nothing about it though.
It's kind of like, it's going down the line of kind of like your Jaws of the Lion, kind of Gloomhaven, campaigny type game. And there's like acrylic miniatures, and basically you're one of the Kinfire seekers, and what you're trying to do is something's happened in the land, and you're trying to basically kind of find out what's kind of going on in the land, and you do it in kind of like an episodic type thing. So you've got little acrylic miniatures. It's a deck driven kind of game. And there's two sides to it being deck driven. One of the deck driven parts is the main kind of combat and movement, and it smacks of Gloomhaven. It's card driven combat. And then there's the kind of the choose your own adventure part where you visit places, you pick a card, you read that, you do an action, you gain items that's going to help kind of increase experience. And then there's kind of like different chapters, and when you play a game, you've got like seems to be a standard now. It's very Jaws of the Lion in this, in that you've kind of got like the ring binder booklet. So you open it up, you place your beautifully illustrated. I'm actually reminded...
The artwork is beautiful. Yeah.
I'm reminded of the Dragon Prince in terms of the artwork. It's kind of like that kind of level.
It's also got a little bit like a slightly more realistic Avatar: The Last Airbender kind of look to it.
Yes.
If you took that like 3 stages of realism up,
yes,
you get that. It's got that kind of color palette to it.
Yes, yeah. But it's a cooperative game by kind of design, and it's a fully cooperative game in terms of the battle, the way that the battle works, in the and it's kind of like it mixes a couple of different mechanics. So when you play a game, and most of the game is based on kind of fighting off kind of various creatures, but you'll have like you have a bag of chits, and in each of the chits you either have enemy chits, which are numbered 1 to 12, or you have seeker tokens, and you decide who takes the next turn by shaking the bag, taking a chit out, and then if it's a number, the enemies have their sections kind of broken up. So the top section might be 1 to 4, the second section down might be 5 to 9, and the final section might be like 10 to 12. So if you take out chit number, say 5, then what you'll do is you'll do the enemy action for that enemy based on number 5 and what that action is on number 5.
They make.
Yeah, it's the move that they make basically, and so they'll charge towards it. They'll have a focus, and when they focus on you and they go to attack you, then the character they're attacking can get backed up. It's all about cooperation. So if you're defending, then the character part of your team, they can help you by contributing a card to help you block. They can contribute a block card that will help you resist the damage. You've also got armor that you're allowed to. The armor is basically you get additional armor cards. If you've got 2 armor cards, that'll remove 2 bits of damage. But if you use your armor cards to remove the damage, you've then got to discard one of the cards. So your armor kind of decreases to symbolise you've just taken a big hit and it's probably cracked your shield or cracked your armor. So it's pretty kind of cool. But then on the attacking side of things, you go ahead and you can there's the normal kind of range attack and there's melee attack. But then if you go ahead and attack somebody, the other player or your other companions can play cards that match the colour of your attack to boost it. And so you can chain things together and you can apply kind of boosts. And then it can kind of continues going back and forwards. You keep playing kind of cards. You get kind of like, you get status effects. So there's like, as the game goes, you might want to hit an enemy, and if you hit an enemy, you can put a status on them. But what that status does is it covers up their action. So if their action is they swing their tail round and they hurt everybody in the same space for like 4 damage, if on your previous attack you gave them like a hurt status, then you take a card from a pile and you place it over their attack. So before they attack, they hurt them. They're showing that they're hurt. So basically, you can end up kind of like applying multiple statuses to like an enemy, and at the same time, you can have like statuses applied to you. You can end up being kind of like being exhausted, and you have a hand of like 7 cards. So you play your cards, and then once you have no more action cards, not necessarily no more cards, but no more cards that have an action, you've then got to discard the rest of your hand. If you discard an exhausted card in your hand, you got to take damage because basically you've worn yourself out so much that you've hurt yourself before you kind of start again. There's also you refresh the bag, so there's tokens in the bag that basically kind of you're spending tokens. So you're pulling tokens and the enemies are fighting and then you're fighting and then the enemies are tight. You end up with a big pile of tokens in front of you. And at some point you'll also get heart tokens that you play or also kind of void tokens that you play. And they go on a timer, and once all the spaces are filled up on this timer, then everything goes back into the bag. And it's a pain in the ass because it means everything resets, and it means the enemies have obviously got a finite number of attacks.
Right.
Because
now they're lethal again, you know.
Yeah, if they draw like that 5
or less
token.
predictable.
Yeah.
You can start to see, right, okay, there's only so much they can do now, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. You can see, you know, if you've went off, I've seen that they've already tried to attack me unsuccessfully, and they've used, you know, 3, 4, 6, 5, 7 and 8, then I know that, you know, there's less likely. What I can do is when I'm because you get a choice of where you place your heart or your confuse tokens or whatever, cards or whatever. So you might say, well, the chances of this then drawing the top attack are pretty high because everything else is spent. So I'll place a heart token there.
Yeah.
Or a heart card there, and then knowing that if the enemy if you draw it, there's more chance of them drawing that kind of chit. And then they automatically get hurt. So there's a lot of kind of mitigation, but it just it kind of works. It kind of works really, really well. There's nice. It's very, very Jaws of the Lion in terms of it's introducing you to how this game kind of plays over a series of chapters and a series of rounds. So you kind of have tuck boxes. They're big kind of chapter tuck boxes. There's like 21 of them. And you open up the thing and it gives you like the enemy you might be facing, or it gives you the deck of cards in relation to where you're visiting and the choices you've got to make. And it'll also introduce kind of more mechanics. I'm kind of... And it's a huge box. I mean, it's a 30 by 30 by 40 size box. It's a big cube box. I mean, it's kind of gloomy. But it's also not as... And I've heard this said of Frosthaven, it's not as labour intensive. As in, you can sit down. Like, what I've been doing is I've been sitting down at night, playing through a chapter. Chapter takes about an hour 15 minutes. You can play through a chapter, and then if you get to an adventure chapter, it'll probably even take less time. So you can do 2 or 3 chapters.
Right.
You can do at least 1 or 2 chapters in a night quite easily, and there's 21 chapters. But the kind of the artwork and the fact it's, you feel kind of slightly in control in terms of the combat, that you're kind of boosting each other kind of back and forward, and you can get some good chains and stuff like that. But it doesn't seem to be... there's not kind of like... There's world building there, but there's not kind of like all the administration around the world building. So it's kind of... I've been enjoying that.
It sounds pretty good.
It's just...
Has it got an element of potential... You can overthink a turn, because you could really kind of math it out, because you've got that kind of open information sort of thing.
Yes.
So can you get to the point where, as that combat goes on and gaps have been filled and stuff like that, so you could really sit there and be like, right, okay, so there's only 3 things here, you could get a little bit over analytical of it?
I'd say yes, absolutely. I mean, I think it's, surprisingly enough, I don't think it's player dependent. I think you would probably have... It works really, really... you'd probably have a point where you kind of like stop and say, right, I need to do... I mean, the first kind of couple of battles that you do, when you get into your 3rd or 4th battle, you are starting to look at the chits, because there are cards that you get that say, just redraw this chit. So you can basically get a chit, and it's the enemy attacking, and you can say, right, I'm not going to draw this one, I'll just stick it back in the bag. You're obviously, it's like taking taking a second go at the chat. But there's also kind of like, there's kind of like tokens that you can use which allow you to mitigate the risk. You get every kind of adventure, you get given a certain, number of Kinfire tokens that allow you to, you can trade these Kinfire tokens in, and it allows you to draw four chits out the bag, pick one of them, and then basically stick the other 3 back in.
Right.
So at one point I was like, it gets down to the line. That was always exciting. You don't feel like you're steamrolling over people, but there's one point it's like, if any of your party kind of like end up unconscious, then that's it, game's over.
Right.
You know, you have to start the whole kind of thing again. So you get to the point where you're kind of like, I have to use this power, because I have to kind of like be in control of what happens. So there is a way to mitigate the kind of the randomness.
Element of it, you know, these things could happen, and if that thing happens, I'm screwed.
Yes.
So I've got to do everything I can to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yes. Okay, yeah. Because there's one things like, say for instance, you can get like powers where you can do, because you can stack up kind of like hurts and confuses and stuns and everything like that. So you can stack them on top of each other. So there's ways of saying, well, the odds that, you know, out of the 2 enemies or 3 enemies that I've got, this guy's definitely going to come up really, really soon, because he's not had any chits at all. So I'm basically going to lay, when he comes on to play, he's going to basically get hurt twice, and then he's not going to be able to attack there. So there's ways of kind of mitigating it, but it just kind of flows quite nicely for me. It's kind of not...
have you ever heard of the game Bolt Action? The
yes!
Miniatures game Bolt Action?
Oh,
have you ever played it?
No.
Because it uses essentially the same logic. So each unit has a dice and it's an order dice. So when you have that, you put it next to them, and it might say rallied them or a shoot or advance or whatever, whatever advance. Yeah. But all of those dice go into a bag, and each turn you draw a dice and go, oh, it's a German, so you hand it to the German player, and they activate a unit, and then they do their thing.
See,
boom, activate. So you get these great ebbs and flows of like, you might go like, oh bloody hell, your dice again, go. Oh, your dice again, go. And then but then they get to that point of like, oh yeah, it's me again. Oh, it's me again. And then it gets to that point of like, oh, hang on a minute, it's me again. You're gonna go batshit crazy on me soon because all of this is gonna swing back at me. But then you also get that brilliant tactical element because you go, right, well, okay, now it's back in my favour, but okay, so those things over there have all activated, so I don't need to worry about activating my forces that are opposing them. I'll get to them in a minute, but this guy in front of this guy who hasn't activated, now I'm going to lay into him. So you get that. I love that system. That you get such a great ebb and flow of like, and it's always your turn kind of thing because so that I like the fact that that's in this Kinfire Chronicles. And that sounds really cool.
It's got a nice little loot box as well. So there's kind of like as you go and travel and you can, but you'll be able to buy weapons, but you're only allowed to have a deck of 18 cards. So you'll be replacing cards that you've got in your hand to make them more kind of powerful, but as you explore you're going to pick up treasure, and that's in kind of like sealed packs that you open up that contain kind of information as well. So it's all just, I don't know, I wanted something that was kind of like an adventure but not have the kind of it sounds weird, but not the huge world building side of things. The kind of the administration and this kind of, right. I want something, if I want to jump in, I want to be able to jump in because my time is usually a case of pretty kind of short. So that's kind of good. So that's what I've been doing. In terms of games that you're looking to get to the table pretty soon.
What have I got? So, I have some things coming, which I'm very much looking forward to. Friend of mine was having a clear out, and he had Core Space. Which is something I've never managed to pick up, and I always wanted to pick up, and I thought it looked really cool. It's good, and if you've never seen Core Space, it's made by a company. I think the company is Battle Systems.
Yeah.
And they kind of made themselves famous with this really detailed artwork, cardboard terrain, which I think kind of started off as like sci-fi and like Dungeons and Dragons kind of, for that sort of thing for role players, and then they made their sci-fi game Core Space, and they did a Kickstarter campaign last year for Maladum, which is like the fantasy version. But I only actually found out the other day it's a fantasy version of Core Space, but it's actually a post-apocalyptic version of Core Space. So it's the sci-fi world that's all kind of gone to shit, and it's kind of gone back to like a medieval type thing. So stuff from the futuristic-y looking sci-fi stuff will turn up in this old world looking post-apocalyptic fantasy stuff. So I had no idea about that, so I'm intrigued. So yeah, you make this really cool environment, and you kind of play. It's got a little bit of that kind of your like groups and bands of people in Core Space. It's kind of got that Firefly feel,
yeah.
Firefly, Han Solo-esque vibe about the characters you play, and you come up against like these androids and all sorts of different things. And apparently it plays really well solo, really well cooperatively. So I think it could be something really good fun for me and Elliot. Elliot's been desperate to get into an adventure game because he's been seeing me and my mates play Oathsworn, and he thinks it looks amazing, and he kind of loves the idea of this like ongoing thing.
Yeah.
And we did start ACWest, and I thought ACWest was really good fun. We played the first one. I thought it was really good fun, but it was quite clunky, and it was like I felt like I was having to kind of give him his options, whereas I think in a really good system he kind of could see what his options are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We've got I'm looking forward to Dungeon Saga Origins coming from Mantic, because that's I think it will be also a really great one. Because it's just good classic
Me too.
Hero Quest-esque, which got me into where I am today. But the core space thing I think potentially as well, but also we've got Hellboy, and I've tried Hellboy a few times, and I think Hellboy is really great, again from Mantic. And we were going to try it the other week, but I couldn't for the life of me find where it was, and I found it today. So I think me and him are going to try Hellboy and see what he thinks of that, because again, it's very, very... I think Mantic rule systems are one of the most underrated things in... Not so much the board game world, because it's not really the world they're in. They're really more in the miniatures world, but some of their stuff is board game adjacent. But in the miniatures game world, their rule systems are... I am such a massive fan of all of the Mantic games I've ever played. And even they have Kings of War, which is their kind of big... It's like their version of Warhammer Fantasy. It's lined up ranked units of fantasy creatures, which I hated when I was younger. I hated Warhammer. I was always a 40k player. I couldn't stand trying to figure out how to make this box move to attack something. It's like it was like trying to attack with a cross-channel ferry. It's just like it doesn't. It's like this doesn't work. Kind of thing. But their games are so good, in my opinion, that I think I'd actually like Kings of War. I have enough on my plate to not need to get into something like that as well. Yeah. So they're one of the things I've got on my plate that I'm really looking forward to. We're still really into Oathsworn, so we're playing the fourth. We played the third encounter on Wednesday and had an absolute blast, and we got the fourth encounter that we should be playing on Wednesday again. I'm just blown away how good Oathsworn is. It's such a truly fabulous game. And so other than that, getting to the table, I want to play more at Age of Comics. I really liked Age of Comics, and I've played it 2 or 3 times now.
Is that the one Delicio went on about, or is that something else? A comics related game?
Oh no, that was the comic book hunters, or Comic Hunters, which came out of Brazil. And it was actually Marvel licensed, but it couldn't be Marvel licensed anywhere else in the world. So it's really hard to get hold of. That's a really cool looking game, but I haven't had a chance to play it yet. No, Age of Comics is game that just kind of recently fulfilled from a Kickstarter the previous year by Lirius Games, and it's set. You're a comic book studio set in the kind of golden age of comics. So and it's just a really good classic worker placement game. It plays like kind of every worker placement game, but it gets quite cutthroat towards the end of it. But the theme is just dripping off it. It's so well produced. Really, really cool game. I really like it. What else have I been? I've been definitely wanting to get something else to the table, but they're the major ones.
All right.
Core Space and Hellboy will probably be me and Elliot.
Well, I've got a pile.
Oh.
Because I do have a pile, but I'm gonna. I
mean, cream you can get for that.
I'm too old for that. I'm like bladder rack. After it's been out in the sun for a while, I'm just sitting down and they're just popping off. Now there's nothing I can do about it. I literally sound like I literally sound like a board gamer when he's opening up a parcel. That's what's happening. I'm kind of like, I'm thinking of changing my middle name to Bubble Wrap. So I've got a couple of things to look forward to. The first one is this Brotherwise Games.
I've just had this arrive as well. Yes.
Empire's End, Brotherwise Games, and the only reason that I kind of looked at it is because it's got John D. Clare's name next to it, and John's my boy. He's done quite a few kind of games that have always been on the really, really big side.
Yeah.
So when I saw Empire's End was going to be a relatively small one, then I kind of thought this. Other one, very quickly, Feudum. Yeah, I know, everybody makes that, people are either like
the
thumbs
look
up.
of Feudum looks amazing, but I remember always hearing the reviews of Feudum and it sounded like it was quite heavy and a bit clunky. Mm-hmm. It's like...
Yeah.
But there are very few games that look as cool as Feudum.
Yeah, I know, and I opened it up and it's got like the little kind of monster thing. But one of the ones, the two main ones I want to... Have you heard of this?
I have heard of that. Yeah, it's solo only.
I keep showing stuff to look instead. It's like we're almost forgetting we're recording. But Halls of Hegra.
Solo game, yeah?
It's an absolutely solo game.
Yeah,
It is
it
based
looks
around...
cool. Really cool. I mean, that cover is unreal.
From the abandoned mountain fortresses, you command a group of Norwegian volunteers fighting numerically superior German forces. Apparently, it's hard as nails. It's really, really difficult. It's really, really tricky. And it sounds absolutely like it's something I'm going to love. I'm just trying to think what else. We've got... no, I'm not going to talk about that one.
Oh, well, just show me what it was, at least in our... Oh, I don't care about that. No. That's a little bit of a nugget of intrigue for the people. No, I don't care. Not my thing.
Okay. I've got this one, but I don't know about this one.
Oh, you know what? I played it once.
Yeah.
And when I played it, I was like, so, can we say what you just showed me?
Yeah, Tapestry. Tapestry.
Yeah, I played it once when it first came out. I think before they'd released all the balancing, the balancing PDF of all that. And I enjoyed it. I was like, yeah, that's a cool game. It's got nothing to do with civilizations. But I like the mechanics of it, and it's very pretty, but I must admit it's one of those ones that I think for the last sort of 6 months I've been like, if I see that come up for a good price second hand,
yes,
I'll pick that up because I think I'd really enjoy it.
I'm intrigued by the multiple kind of... No, I haven't, not yet. It's on the pile, but it's a multiple track kind of game. I've watched he who shall not be on this podcast, even if he begs, Rodney Smith's playthrough video, watch it played, and it's kind of like go up the tracks, and then, but what I've heard is depending on the civilization that you get, some of them will just steamroller you into hundreds and hundreds of points, and other ones you'll be like sitting at 5 and going, what did I do wrong? So I'm interested to see kind of how it plays over the next kind of things. I've been playing this.
Oh yeah, the toy
Snapshot Tactics.
Yeah, is it good?
It's amazing.
Is it really?
It's so good.
It's not just a gimmick. It's not just a toy that they made into a board game.
You know, better than X-Wing. I'm not saying, but yeah, okay.
Is it really?
No, it's probably not. But I really like it. It's kind of like
it's a really good game, though, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a written review coming out, which is why I can't kind of go. No. Okay. But it's bad. It's a bad game. It's potentially a good game. But this is right. But this is the main one. And I want your thoughts. Right?
Yeah.
Resident Evil.
Yeah.
And that's coming to the table. I've got to get up. I've already been mucking about with it a bit. And that's one of the ones I want to get to the table. Because I've got Resident Evil 3. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the tension. I really, really liked it. It was a really, really fun game. So I'm interested to see how they kind of match the tension of the first game and the puzzles of the first game. Because Sherwin, who designed the game, was on the show. But I'm interested to see how, what works and what doesn't. Because Resident Evil 3, in my opinion, Resident Evil 3 was becoming the kind of like, there was hordes of zombies coming after you. Resident Evil 1, there's very much a lesser amount of enemies to kind of deal with, and I'm just wondering how the kind of the puzzle elements and the tension elements kind of work.
I still never truly understood why they released them in the order they released those in. I think it was to do with re-releases of the original video games. I think they got remastered.
I can tell you the answer to the question, and that is exactly the reason why.
Because I have worked with Steamforged. I know Steamforged well. I think I had that discussion with one of them, and I was like, okay, yeah, fine, makes sense.
Yeah. So I think it was to do with 25th anniversaries or something like that. I think it was to do with 25th anniversaries of like 3, maybe. Or maybe it was the 20th anniversary, but they released that one, and then they had 2 and 1 in the background, and then they says, oh, hang on until we're going to do that. Obviously the sculpts are really, really good. The card stuff's going to be good. The rulebook's okay-ish, but then I played 3, so I kind of know what I'm going to be expected. It doesn't have, I'm just going to see if it's going to still have the kind of the tension kind of stuff. So we'll see.
Have you played a lot of Steamforged stuff?
Yes. I've played Horizon Zero Dawn. I haven't played
Horizon Zero Dawn.
I like that.
I haven't played Horizon Zero Dawn because I tried the actual video game and I just found it oddly dull.
You watch your mouth. You watch your filthy mouth. It's a
cool world, and I wanted to love it.
I can't help it if you've got no taste in video games.
But like, whenever
was it not
I play
FIFA enough for you? Was that what the problem was?
Do I look like a FIFA guy?
I was going to say there wasn't enough shooty bang bang Call of Duty.
Yeah. No. Every time I play something Steamforged, I'm just waiting for that Steamforged game that makes me go, oh, that was bloody awesome. Every time I play a Steamforged game, I'm like, oh, that was fine. And it's always just a bit. I've never thought they were bad. I haven't played Dark Souls, which I know a lot of people had a lot of issues with Dark Souls.
Yeah.
But I played Bard Sung, and I was like, there's some aspects of Bard Sung that I love, and I think it's really cool. Mm-hmm. And then there's some aspects that kind of draw it back again, so it kind of just sits in that middle, you know.
Bard Sung's on my list of games that I'd love to try.
And beautiful miniatures. I really love the style and the aesthetic of it. But yeah, I just always feel like Steamforged, they always just fall a little, not flat, but just like, that's fine. You know, I'm never going to be sort of like, I've got to tell my friends about this game, you know, kind of thing. So just waiting for that one from them.
I wonder, and this is my thoughts behind this, is if it's to do with restrictions. As in, when you look at all the stuff that they do, like Horizon Zero Dawn and stuff like that, there's always like 4 or 5 boxes. I mean, Resident Evil's going to have an expansion in it, no problem at all. Resident Evil 3 did have an expansion. I think Resident Evil 2's got an expansion. Yeah, Horizon Zero Dawn had there's about
Monster
9 or
Hunter
10
had
boxes.
2 base sets.
Yes.
It's like if there's 2 base sets. So there's not one place to start from. No.
There's
2.
No.
It's like, well, hang on a minute. What do you mean there's 2?
Exactly.
It's like, you know,
exactly.
And that it all gets a bit, you know.
So I'm just wondering, right? Okay, so if you're a cook. I know you're a good cook. I look at your food and sometimes need to remind myself I just can't take my trousers down anywhere. It's just so bad. But what I'm saying is, right, if I let you have access to my fridge, my freezer, my larder, my cupboards, and said pick anything you want, then it's likely to be, I mean, you'll probably put something together which is kind of pretty good. But I don't know if you're always putting together the best of the ingredients that's kind of there, because you've got so much choice.
So much, yeah.
Whereas if I did like a technical kind of like, you know, a technical challenge like they do in MasterChef and say, okay, you've got 15 ingredients.
Yeah.
This is all you've got. Do the best with what you've got. I wonder if you've got the ability to just continually develop until you decide you've got to stop. And I've always wondered what, you know, I know that things like Sea of Thieves is out, and I know that's a single box game. But surprisingly enough, it's been very quiet. I've not heard an awful lot about that at all.
I said this
you know?
because Mike Delisio at Essen, the Dice Tower booth, they were doing like a come and play with the Dice Tower crew, and they're all playing different games. And one of the ones, the first one I think I saw was Mike playing Sea of Thieves. Yeah, and I even spoke to Ben for Steamforged at Essen. I was like, I said, why the hell did you not do a big Kickstarter for Sea of Thieves? That just sounds like an obvious Steamforged campaign of a big Kickstarter campaign for Sea of Thieves, Yeah. And they sounded like it was very much like they just didn't need it, and they kind of want, they don't want to just always be doing campaigns, and they want to, so. And from what I gather, really good game, and maybe there's an element of that. It was restricted and it had to be a retail level game, And I had this discussion, kind of similar discussion with somebody at ACWest that, have you played the game Pray Another Day?
No, I haven't. No.
Do you know the game I'm talking about?
No, I don't.
So, I haven't got it. So it's essentially, if you take Love Letter, and the assassin aspect of Citadels, right, this is the game you've got. So you've got condensed Love Letter. So it's like the guard aspect of Love Letter, the assassin of Citadels. If you take just that little nugget of those two games, you make this game of it. So everybody has 5 cards. Yeah, you've got mouse, owl, lynx, jaguar, bear. Something like that. Bear, wolf, lynx, owl, mouse, right? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Going down in that order. At the start of the turn, you put one of them face down in front of you. And then somebody will go, bear. And if you've got bear, you turn over bear. Yeah. If you're the only person who's turned over bear, then you get to go hunting. And you call out one of the further down the line things. And if anybody has that chosen, you have hunted those ones and bumped they're out of the round, you carry on into the round. If, when he says bear, 2 people chose bear, then none of them can go hunting, but you're still in the round, right? Yeah. And you do that till one person's in the round, and if they're the only person by the end of it, they get 2 points, and it's first to 5 points. If you get to the end and there's 3 after 3 sort of rounds of that, if more than one person is still in it, you look at the amount of points that the tallied up. So obviously if they used lesser animals, they got more points to do so, and they might win. Or if you get ties, etc., you get 1 point. So it's just this really, really beautiful, condensed, amazing game. And I said it kind of really blows my mind, and almost annoys the hell out of me that somebody could come up with such a fabulous, brilliant little game from 5 cards. That so much in this little thing from so little stuff. That takes true, I think, skill and amazing level of design and restraint and everything. I said, because when you take like these big adventure games like Bardsong or Dungeon Saga or all these games, anybody could design that game if you have the limit to just keep adding shit in. Yeah. Anybody could do it. But to be able to be restrained and hold stuff back and limit it and streamline it and make it the perfect polished version that it can be, that takes true skill and is a far greater achievement in an end result than just this giant thing where you just went, just keep chucking stuff in, because really at the end of the day it's become so unwieldy that it almost doesn't work, unless you put copious amounts of energy into making it work. There's
to be honest, there's a storage side of things as well. That's one of these yes, okay,
Marvel United, next to Foundations of Rome.
Yes.
That's Marvel United takes up a lot of space.
I know. Yeah, that's just but I don't know, I kind of like, because when I saw going back to General Orders, when I saw the box was this size, I was like, nah.
But there's clearly a hell of a lot of game in that very.
Because they were
box.
talking about it, like when they were talking about it, I was under the impression that like when somebody says to me worker placement, I automatically think like viticulture or something like that. Yeah. That's what the size.
Well,
I'm going for.
I had assumed that General Orders box was the same size as the Undaunted box.
That's what I thought as well.
Portrait,
You know. So it's an
when
interesting
I first thought it was that, I was like, oh, that's not what I expected.
It's not. It's not. It actually fits. It actually fits in a bag. Expeditions. You have a lot to learn from because that's a bag, but that's it.
I saw that at ACWest. Yeah, wow, that is a big box. Yeah,
it is. You got to wonder about that. What else that box could be. There's obviously rooms for expansions. I'm not gonna sit in. I liked expeditions. I think there's some designers that you kind of like. You really enjoy their. You enjoy their designs, and you click with them, and you just kind of get on. So there you go. So hopefully, by the time we talk again, I'll have Empires. Do you know what we should do? Both try and get Empire's End played, and then the next time we talk, we can have a chat about Empire's End.
What we think?
That'd be interesting. And everybody's listening going, what, is this some kind of deal? This some kind of promise? No. I might
deal
even edit
it.
Yeah. All right, so which one's which then? Oh, well. Right. It's time to call this madness to a close. You have hit a record.
You said go for an hour. I was like,
Who did that?
I don't know, just an hour.
What's that all about? Gonna have to go power lift. Gonna have to go downstairs and power lift some forgiveness for being away for so long. That's what I'm gonna have to do. No fat on this.
It's been lovely talking to you, sir.
It's always yes. We shall definitely. What we shall do is if people want to find you on the internet webs, where do you exist, Mr. Pryor? Not that we don't know.
YouTube channel is Standard Tabletop. It's not doing anything for a while, or it will do something again one day. You'll see me on Facebook.
I'm gonna totally embarrass you to keep I'm gonna keep bringing it up until you kind of go.
And I'll just keep banging that drum.
I did a video. Now will you cough?
Shut up. Please don't this will mean something now. Exactly.
Yeah, I've done it. I've achieved. And if you want, follow us where you get your podcast catcher of choice. Go to we'renotwizards.co.uk, we'renotwizards.com, we'renotwizards.tabletop.com, which is where the blog is. Now I've done some mucking about. And if you like what you've listened to, there's a couple of things you can do. Tell other people about us. That's a good thing. Give us a rating or a review on your podcast catcher of choice. Spotify is always nice at the moment. But mostly tell somebody else. It could be their Christmas gift. If you're thinking about Christmas and you don't particularly like that person, it's a distant uncle or somebody that you don't particularly like anymore, send us this, send them a link to this podcast and then say Merry Christmas to them, and you'll either excite them beyond their wildest dreams or they shall remind you while you only see them like once every 3 or 4 years. I don't know where I'm going with this.
I don't know either.
There's only 2 more things to do. The first thing is to remember we're many things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards, Luke? Don't you?
No, I'm not a wizard.
Don't
I
you
promise.
dare. Don't you? So every guest recently has been
I'm not a wizard.
Oh, I'm a wizard. And I'm like that. All right. Scumbags. There's a lot of them.
Oh, I'm definitely not a wizard.
Definitely not. And the second thing is to say goodbye. So it's
goodbye.
So it's a goodbye from me.
It's a goodbye from him.
Until next time. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
A wizard is never licked. nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.